Good evening and welcome once again to another fine episode of Behind the Counter. I'm your host, Rich Stambolian, and with me as always is the original Dark Passenger, Jonathan Adler.
Oh, that was going to be my line at the end. That was going to be my line at the end. Shoot.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I was originally going to call you the Universal Soldier, but after our conversation outside, I went with Dark Passenger.
I think I spend the most time on the show trying to think of how I'm going to close it out and what I'm going to call myself. I think you do the same thing for what you're going to call me.
Yeah. The kitty cat.
Meow mitts.
I'm your host, the kitty man.
I'm Doggy Tuesday.
What's going on, man?
I have no idea.
Yeah. How's your week been?
It's been all right.
Yeah.
A lot of reading of literature and not comic books. So I'm sorry if I'm not myself.
Well, you know what? Actually, we're in luck because this week was a really small week. Today's
was a good book week.
Good book week for everybody involved.
Enjoy yourself today.
We had a very short stack of comics this week because not really much came out. Surprisingly, no DC new stuff came out.
They did so well with planning and everything. It feels like this, like they forgot there's like a fifth week in November.
I think Legion Lost was the only one that came out, which we both didn't pick up.
Oh man, I don't think I've read any DC this week at all.
No, except for Spaceman.
Spaceman I read. But yeah, it's been like a really, really like week. Even at Marvel, they didn't really come with like big books.
Nah, they came out with some solid stuff, which we will get to later. But
also news-wise, it's been quiet.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little bit briefly. Like you had I think it was more a speculative week where, like one of the big things that's making headlines now, which I don't like. I think we're both like not disgusted by it, but like something's gonna happen with it. There's rumors about a Watchmen 2 going on, which is gonna be a prequel, and they're gonna do it, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, the whole thing is that they've always talked about Watchmen 2 happening. And they're not going to officially call it Watchmen 2 because it's really a prequel. And apparently the headhunter for this, like the spearheading movement of this, is Darwin Cook, or at least he was recruited by DC to be like the head of Watchmen 2,
right?
Along with the good blessings of Dave Gibbons because he wants money. He wants money. But the whole thing is, who they talk about? Joe Kubert and Andy?
Andy Kubert.
Doing a Night Owl 1 and Night Owl 2, like father and son story.
Yeah, I was reading Azraella's name was thrown around a little bit.
Yeah, they talked about him before too. Who was the other dudes? Kubert was the one that's confirmed. Like Andy Kubert's definitely on the book. So it exists. Like there is like the beginnings of it starting. But what we were talking about before is like this was always the joke. Like this was if you saw a parody of an Alan Moore comic, it was probably going to be called Watchmen 2, and there's always a thing that would not ever exist, and now it's kind of coming to fruition. And so we're reaching a point in comics where nothing is really taboo.
Right.
And what was the signaling moment of that?
The Bucky getting brought back from the dead, which was in the Marvel canon specifically, there were things that you could not touch. And for the longest time, it was a couple of things. It was you can't bring Uncle Ben back, you can't kill Aunt May, and you can never bring Bucky back from the dead. And that was kind of like, I'm sure it wasn't like an official thing, but it was just for fandom.
It's a quiet agreement.
And, like a mutual understanding that like these things can never happen. And then Brubaker completely threw that for a loop and said, "Hey, I'm bringing back Bucky in an awesome way." But you made up a good point before. Like if I was the head of the board and you pitched to me saying like, "Hey, we're gonna bring back Bucky. He's got a robot arm."
Even the head of the board would actually say that's a good idea. Yeah. I think the average fan in hindsight would probably say that it was a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. They did it in a great way. I mean, that's just a testament to the writing. And I mean, Watchmen 2 could, or whatever it's going to be called, could be good. It could be very well written and very well handled. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like I think the great part of Watchmen was it's a novel. It's a a one complete storyline. You can speculate. Mm-hmm. You can do your weird like odes to it, like Morrison's going to do, and that multiversity, like alternate reality thing, because you are dealing with like the Charleston heroes and that era of like Blue Beetle, and they're all kind of archetypes at this point. Yeah, they're all like there's an archetypal thing to Watchmen, but no one ever had enough balls to really dip a toe in this. The problem with this is like I don't believe there's anything that shouldn't be covered, and that's coming from purely a business standpoint.
Right.
In terms of creativity, the problem with this is you open up all of Alan Moore's work. within DC. So if Watchmen 2 does well, I'm sure it's going to sell a lot of copies. You're probably going to get a V for Vendetta miniseries down the line with Jim Lee doing the art on the cover. Sounds good, right? Sounds really good.
Grumble. I mean, it's going with the whole no taboo thing anymore in comics, and you can do whatever you want. I feel like as long as it's good, people will buy it and people will like it. But, I appreciate Watchmen as a self-contained entity. Now, I'm not saying that I don't mind new stuff coming out, and I love Darwin Cook. What he did with New Frontier a few years ago was tremendous.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with revisiting a property, especially if you're working within the realms of like DC or Marvel. You have a ton of different toys you can play with that other people are going to play with and add more to the mythos. But the problem is sometimes you just have to leave certain things alone. And, the hard thing is the fact that we don't know if it's going to be good.
Right.
And even worse than that, corporate people and people who okay these things don't know if it's gonna be good either. Like, who knows? Like, maybe you could have the absolute best, creative team in the world and produce another Watchmen story, and then at the end of the day, it's shit.
Yeah.
And you tarnish the name. It can be great, but you're still tarnishing the name.
That's true, and I feel like that those sentiments come from two professional fans who are like
full-time fan, brother.
Full-time fans, love comics, and the whole thing with that is as a fan, you've been kind of burned before, where you revisit a franchise and it's not up to snuff.
Well, it's also the thing that I know that neither of us, like, I'm sure both of us would read, and perpetuate this problem.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because there is like a morbid curiosity that you want to see it, and especially if you do have a great creative team. If you're talking about names like Joe Kubert, Adam Kubert, Andy Kubert, all the Kuberts, Darwin Cook, Azzarello. These are people who produce consistently good stuff. Like, I can't say I've really read a ton of garbage coming out of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you feel like you're hungry for another Watchmen? No.
I honestly, I am not.
Yeah,
I am not hungry for it. If Watchmen 2 was on the menu, as opposed to like a lot of the stuff that we're reading right now, I would have to maybe get that on the second visit to the restaurant.
I don't think there's anything really like of the classics. Like, you don't like, even when they decided to continue Sandman in its weird state, with Daniel after Neil Gaiman left the book, it was something that I wasn't terribly interested in, because you're following this kind of creator character and this creative team, and it's not, I don't know, it's tough because I don't feel Watchmen is part of that same type of caliber of storytelling.
Yeah, there's a big gray area with it, because you already have what Alan Moore did in 12 issues takes writers and artists like many years to actually accomplish. He fleshed out entire cast of characters in a limited amount of time, and those are iconic characters at this point if you're a comic book fan. Revisiting that close to 30 years later or 25 years later or whenever this book is going to come out, I'm not saying it's a mistake, but you're absolutely right. It may fall on deaf ears.
Well, a big thing is I think the people behind the scenes in the comic industry and any business are worrying about, are kind of going around the idea of the public doesn't know what they want.
Right.
But they'll know when they want when it's actually on the shelf. Just like how we're not calling for a Watchmen series. But, who knows? Maybe we need it. Maybe they think they're producing a new market, because basically it's a new comic. It's a brand new something or other they can make $1 off of. Yeah.
And that's the big thing, you need to make money with with all these books, and as evident from the past 5 weeks of DC's completely selling out and going into fourth print runs of their books, they're still dominating the market share. There, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? It's really a kind of an empty area. I think I was reading Axel Alonso, who's now the editor-in-chief for Marvel.
Right.
He said that it's how tough it is to produce anything brand new. People are consistently buying your X-Men's, your Avengers, and your kind of dug in. Yeah, they're really trying to trim the fat, because people are getting fired. There's not enough money. People are there's the big worry of like brick and mortar retail stores going out now, because everything's going day and date with digital. Mark Miller had a big thing where he only released Kick-Ass in print, and because he's very concerned about the retail aspect, and we were too when we were. It's always a big concern. But it's all about the bottom line, especially in this type of industry and what's going on right now. So like if they have the opportunity to print something that they know is going to like, number one, get press. Like if you're producing Watchmen, prequel or whatever it may be, it's going to get press. You're doing V for Vendetta nowadays, especially nowadays, it would do tremendously well, regardless if it's shit or not.
Absolutely. There's also like another thing as a fan where as an Alan Moore fan and as a fan in general, like anytime there's any kind of Alan Moore related news, I always get the same feeling of like, that guy's not gonna like this.
No, he never does. He doesn't want to go near their this stuff. This is the dude who hands his checks over to his artists and doesn't make any more money off it because he's so disgusted with the industry. And listen, that's I understand it. I understand like where's what his point is, and I agree with a ton of it. But yeah, I don't think he'd ever come back to to work on a project that he's walked away from.
No,
you're not getting your V Vendetta from Alan Moore or Watchmen.
I mean, I don't think it's a matter. I mean, it's a matter of personal integrity for him, but I mean like general integrity, where he's like, these are finite works and they're done. And that's it, and they should be enjoyed like that. But that's kind of interesting because it reminded me of a news story I read this week too. When you're talking about the digital thing, Ray Bradbury, 91-year-old Ray Bradbury, finally.
He's not dead yet?
No,
wow.
He's still alive. He actually gave the okay for Fahrenheit 451 to be put out digitally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's kind of like, and they were like, listen, 20% of the book sales will come from the digital market, and he's like, but it's a book about burning books. You're gonna read it on a screen. All right, go for it. And he kind of bent, after the guy's 91 years old, after years and years and years and years and years of saying this book should only be in print. Kind of turn around and said, go for it.
Because at the end of the day, it's like. There's your livelihood you have to worry about, your estate, your your kids, your grandchildren, everything, and it's a shitty bottom line you have to worry about especially in terms of if you're a serious writer. If you really believe in your craft and anything, you want that to be the one thing that you really stand on. And once you carve your own kind of niche stuff out, at the end of the day, it may that format may not exist anymore.
You're absolutely right.
Doorbell.
And that's the end of the lightning round. So, I mean, that ties into what we wanted to talk about today, which is, also what makes a comic book good. Because there's so many factors at this point where, you can put a book in somebody's hands and it would be garbage, but it will sell, and there's like a whole gray area with that, and like to you, what makes an awesome book?
I mean, like, there's a reason why I'm still reading this stuff, and I think it inherently is the serial aspect. I think there's something in the back of our brains that really pushes us to want to know who's behind the mask, what happens next, what happens to this character, and then you're stuck because you become personally invested in this stuff.
Right.
But that's just the basic conceit of what makes comics. I think why I'm here is Stockholm Syndrome.
They grabbed you, and now you don't want to let them go.
But what makes a really, really good comic is like I love the finite story, but it's just tough because I really love the finite story. I love things happen. Like that's why I like so much TV nowadays, where you actually have stuff that has a beginning and an end. Because it's the only between comics and television, it's the only thing that close to a novel, where you actually can get like a nice, well put together, built together story. Over the last few years, like when Marvel was going through their change and DC followed suit as well, where they started bringing much more serious, writing ability into it and made it much more grown up. You saw a lot of people change the way that, writing was handled in comics. And you got these, people complain about like, talking head books and anything, but they became a stronger art form. Right. Those are the things that I really enjoy. If at the end of the day, if you can deliver it to me, I can just read the words, I'm happy. Right. I can just look at the pictures, I'm happy. It fills some type of inherent need, but I think it's if you can keep me coming back every single month.
Okay.
Multiple times in different books. That's what I enjoy.
That makes a good comic for you.
That's
as an intelligent fan.
Yeah, the baseline needs it fulfills.
Right. Okay, that's cool. Oddly enough, did you read Mudman?
I did read Mudman.
It's funny that like Paul Grist, in the intro to Mudman #1, which came out a couple of weeks ago by Paul Grist, who's an excellent British comic book artist writer. he pretty much said the same thing. He was like, listen, I'm a huge TV fan and I'm a huge comic book fan, and these are the only two genres where you get a development of a character over a span of time, where you can fall in love with these characters and see where they go, and it's a matter of who's writing them and who's drawing them, but you're putting them in people's hands, and they'll eat it up. If as long as it's good and consistent, they will eat it up. You know? And you're right, it works both ways with comic books and TV. And like comic books for me, and like for both of us especially, you know, like you want to see where the character goes. And the beautiful thing about like the comics that have come out in the last few years, you have so many twists and turns that it just kind of makes everything that you've read, let's say in the 90s when we were growing up, kind of like garbage. You know? Where it's just words on a page with no characterization. That's my main problem with a lot of comics.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the New 52 stuff is, I feel like it's written that way, where it's just words on a page to put in people's hands to make $1.
Yeah.
Like a book like Black Hawks, which I was really looking forward to, is just like there's no characterization. It's just, hey guy, nobody has their own voice.
No.
You know, I feel like to me, a good comic is something that you can read and enjoy fully, that makes you think a little bit, and it could also be something that you can put in somebody's hand that's never read a comic and say, this is literature, you'll enjoy this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a big part of it. I mean, this is like how we say over and over again that there's no such thing as a bad story as long as it's handled well. I mean, there's no bad character, there's no bad plot point. Like even what we say about the taboos of the comics, as long as it's handled well. Just like how we talked about Bucky. Bucky could have been a terrible return, a terrible thing that should have never gone there. But you had a tremendous writer behind it. You had a great art team behind it. You know, if Mudman was written by and drawn by somebody that wasn't Paul Grist, it could have been a horrible Spider-Man villain.
Right. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot involved. It's a really like complicated, weird, because like our tastes change over the years. You know, but you basically have weird draws of certain characters that are nostalgic to you, and you want them handled well. But like definitely, if you look at old like JLA and stuff like that, you still have an appeal for them, but you look at I'm sure you love it the same as way I do, Identity Crisis.
Oh yeah,
which was
absolutely.
like using, it's like a prime example of using that old idea and really messing with it, making it more grown up. I had an old film teacher of mine once said to me, it was one of the things that kind of stuck in my head, every story is based on one of two stories, Little Red Riding Hood or Jack and Jill. You know, and as long as you can flesh out those two ideas, you have a winner. Yeah.
You know, and if you don't lose sight of those primal simple concepts, you will have a winner. You know, a lot of books that come out, like I said, are very like miss, but it to me it's a weird ratio right now, where a lot of books that come out are misses, but you'll have have extreme misses and extreme hits. You know, like there's extreme highs, and again, like if you watch the show, we're huge Marvel guys, and that's it's us trying to be not trying to be unbiased to whatever's trying to be unbiased to whatever's out there, but the fact of the matter is, like for us as two guys who've read comics since we were kids, Marvel is killing it right now with everything they're doing and the cohesive universe and the characterization and where they're sending these characters. DC, like a lot of their stuff is really solid and really fantastic, and I really want them to do well. You have a lot of excellent New 52 books, like Batman's really kicking ass, Batwoman, a handful of the bad books, I should say. But then there's stuff that falls by the wayside.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we've voiced our gripes about DC, numerous times about how it's kind of just in the moment where Marvel is very much constructed in its own universe and it's built its own universe up. And it took them a long time to get there. There was a time, especially looking through my old comics, like over like 2000 to where we are now, Marvel was in a real terrible place. And they were doing the exact opposite, where they were making these very self-contained, like Daredevil was its own entity, and it was still very, very good when Bendis was writing it. And none of the books really touched. It's just taken us this long to get to a point where we're reaching like X-Men and Avengers, like kind of crossing over.
Yeah, which is, I mean, like it sounds weird saying it, but it's true because both universes were completely separate.
Yeah, and now DC is at a point where it's just like, don't worry, like we got a plan. Don't worry about like we're like all that continuity you're worrying about. Like you don't think that we got a plan. We're DC Comics. We know about it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. I think they're leaving it blank enough so they can write it in later on if they have to.
Absolutely. That may be like a big thing with that, especially like what you mentioned before, which was kind of like sad, is that this is the first year in a long time they didn't do the JLA JSA Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I find out something new every day. Like I realize like we're missing something in DC every time. Like every week that passes by, that there's not an appearance of a character, and I'm like, because there's no JSA, there's no Golden Age of DC Universe anymore. You know, the very first appearance of superheroes is pretty much 5 years ago.
Justice League #1.
Yep, right. That's the very first superheroes. Like your first superheroes were Superman and Green Lantern and Batman.
Yeah, it's weird. Like shit like that's weird to me. And the fact that like within continuity you don't have any of the crises. You don't have Superman dying. A lot of people are written off. You know, Elongated Man among
Blue Beetle.
Hundreds of characters are gone and don't exist, and they're replaced by the core characters, but also like just weird side characters that are handled poorly. I can't read Firestorm. I picked up the first one.
Man, it's just, and I love her. I think she's such a great writer, and it's just like it's such a like middle of the road book. It is just like these weird like there's this recurring theme with DC now. I think it's been there for a long time. I'm kind of picking up now, where like we've talked about with like how it takes place in labs, schools, like pastures
and mountain hideaways.
Yeah, it's always like the same like thing where like and nothing. Even when you go to like Central City versus like Coast City, there's not really a distinct way of viewing it. Yes, Marvel is all in like New York for the most part,
right?
But you have like Latveria, and you have like there's certain design aspects where like you can travel different worlds.
You have locales.
Yeah,
in the Marvel universe. You have Wakanda.
You have those little touchstones you can go through.
Savage Land.
DC does like they have like. Themyscira. They have
Monkey Island.
Which probably doesn't exist anymore. They have like the what do they call it, the Fifth World, wherever it is, the
New Gods,
stuff,
Fourth World,
that type of stuff. And then like labs, like it's always like labs and like dudes, and like especially Firestorm, like the whole book is dominated by people with like jumpsuits on and guns. It's like Black Ops agents. Like every DC comic I've read has had Black Ops agents.
Yeah, and it's not even Checkmate.
No, it's just like shitty like mercenaries. It's just like it's so like devoid of any type of real like world building, and really like makes me want like they're rewarding the fair weather fan. They're these new people are coming in, making it very accessible. But like, dude, you have to just like how you have an X-Men movie and you want to throw out this little like tidbits to the fans. Yeah, if you make an agent a Checkmate agent, cool. Like that, it's a little bit of a bonus. You make this guy was part of the. The crime syndicate, or that this guy used to be, one
gangbusters.
Like this guy used to be gangbusters, like little pitches to that stuff.
Or inner gang.
Inner gang. Inner gang. I was trying to think the same thing. I was like,
Gangbuster was the dude with the fist on his chest.
Yes, who was Superman at one point.
Yes.
But yeah, man, it's just really like a weird wasteland of kind of like undeveloped ideas, and there's not much. I don't think there's much thought into the future. I think it's very much of the moment. It's passion without passion. I think
it's the it's the big budget movie syndrome too, or like and I just thought of that with the Nameless Thugs, because how many movies have you seen where like the good guy beats up the Nameless Thugs, and that's it, like where as opposed to like Marvel has their stuff together, and you have your cadre of villain teams. You have Hydra, you have Serpent Society, you have not what do you call it, AIM, the Nazis,
like, dude, you can go like you can do something as simple as
Shield and Hammer,
You can go if you do like a gangster storyline, if you have like a mob boss, you could always have Ox, Fancy Dan, and what's his face show up,
Big Montana.
It's Ox, Fancy Dan, and man, I can't remember the other guy. But those are like guys who you can kind of pull from the well of characters and just like plug into a story and just make it halfway decent. I think that's a strength of why we always talk about Earth X, is because they took every element and it's filled with their, all these characters they can pull from.
Right.
DC doesn't seem to be doing that anymore.
Well, they had to. I mean, like
they did at one point.
They did with Kingdom Come, and then the stuff they did with JSA, which was fantastic. But that stuff, again, that's that stuff doesn't exist, and B, like that stuff really fell off the wagon. I remember when a few years ago when JSA was the book I was looking forward to reading.
So good.
When they did the Gog Magog thing.
Yeah.
And they actually had Magog show up in the comic, and then you had the actual Gog. Who was like the faux creator of everything, being worshipped by a lot of people, and that stuff was really cool, and it went under the radar, and it was so well written and so well drawn. I think Eagledrum did it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had Alex Ross covers, and you like had Jeff Johns on that run was just amazing. Like that was a prime example. That's why it's I think it's so infuriating because this was the dude who kind of encouraged DC to really feed into its own history,
right,
and make those things like play with these characters, make Rainbow Raider a character again, and like play with the rogues and make them awesome. Like they're prime examples of what you can do with. And now this guy is running the company along with Jim Lee, and it's just kind of, I don't know, dude. It's just lacking what I want out of comics. Maybe that's very selfish of me, but I don't see anyone really saying like this is the best stuff ever. Well, I know it's a work in progress, but come on.
I mean, I think I know where you're coming from. Where I think you're worried about what's over the horizon, and you want it to be an island full of beautiful women, but it may just be a wasteland like Waterworld.
Yeah. I do.
And another thing, like this is like I feel like we're ragging on DC too much. It's very easy to do at this point.
Yeah, but if Marvel was doing a shitty job, I'd be ragging on Marvel.
I feel like DC should really take a big hint from what Robert Kirkman has done in all his Image comics, because he created totally under the current of anybody who ever reads like stuff like who reads stuff a lot, is that he created his own weird Image universe. Where like all his characters kind of live together, and they're just like they're just mini series and little one shots that happen here and there, but they'll all show, like Brit will show up in Invincible, Tech Jacket, Super Dinosaur. They all exist in like the same universe, and that's really cool, and it's a really well built universe.
And the fact that he was the one that really perpetuated the idea of a cohesive Image universe where like Spawn and all these other Jagoffs kind of live in the same universe too.
Well, they kind of had that before until like something went south, and then you had
they all split,
and then you had Top Cow, and then you had Extreme, and then you had Wildstorm, and then every creator who came to Image left with another company.
But Image wasn't like when they started Image, they weren't thinking about the aspect of creating a cohesive world.
Well, you had a couple of crossovers. Remember when Chapel from Youngblood was the guy who killed Spawn, and I think they retconned it.
They probably did. I think so. Yeah. And they also gave him AIDS.
Yes.
Like his like for killing Spawn, you got AIDS.
That was the go-to.
Yeah. Shadowhawk get AIDS.
Shadowhawk and Chapel.
All black people. What's wrong with them?
They were young guys. They didn't know what to do.
I read it. I bought it. I ate it up.
We all ate it up. We all ate up like so much stuff, and like it's. I think Marvel has recovered fully from the 90s. DC recovered from the 90s as well, and then kind of shot itself in the foot a little bit in like a couple of years ago. And now it's still the comics will always be in a state of flux.
Yeah, always. Yeah, there's always going to be a balance between the two of these companies,
which is good for guys like us because we'll always have a show. As long as Andrew doesn't fire us. Or
maybe.
Here it comes. Spoke too soon.
But yeah, I mean, like like I said, there was a time when Marvel was complete garbage. Mm-hmm. There was a time when DC didn't know what the hell they were doing. Yeah. There was reasons why I stopped reading comics for a long period of time because it was really garbage. It was the Clone Saga. It was like the 90s and
gatefold covers.
Yeah, it was just like there
foil. Everything was covered in foil.
That's right. Yeah, but that's what I'm worried about with all this DC stuff is that because when the bomb dollar becomes the main focus or something like this, it really gets weird. Mm-hmm. And like, but it also times like this also produced some really unusual stuff. Like when I was looking through all the stuff and I found like. Hard Times.
Hard Times was
like,
excellent.
We're going to talk about like old forgotten stuff like on another episode, but they took chances. Yeah. And because the bomb line is such a big issue, you don't take those chances anymore. That's why things like Becky Cloonan's, Doctor Doom miniseries got canceled, axed, and like before it even came out, like those little miniseries that we would really appreciate, but no one bought are not going to get produced anymore.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Unless they're digital only.
Yeah,
which is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, that's like another that's like a whole other big issue.
Well, look at it this way: it's not going to get better. Like as much as we ignore and trying to think, the best possible thing could happen with digital, it's going to come down to this: distribution costs down. Like that's going to be
forget it.
Yeah, that's going to be something they can just cut out. Printing costs, all those things that are like a staple of like comics. Are gonna go bye. Like those things to save money. Like it's gonna come a point where like we can only produce digitally.
But then you'll have, and that would be currently in a state of flux, because then you'll have companies saying, "Listen, we're going to be old school. We're going to do this." And I feel like Dark Horse will be like the champions of that cause, because you have a lot of cool stuff in Dark Horse. And the thing about them is that they'll have an awesome creative team come on like Conan.
Yeah.
The new Conan series that's coming out. It's Brian Wood.
Yeah.
And Cloonan.
Yeah.
And it looks fantastic. And this is going to be the first Conan book I've picked up since Busiek left the
I stuck around a little bit afterwards. What's his name when he came on?
Truman.
Yeah, I read some of his, but it wasn't close to Busiek stuff. Busiek stuff was so good because it resembled the old novels.
Yeah.
It was like straight up like old school pulp.
Yeah,
Hyperborea and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was fantastic stuff, and it was beautifully drawn by Carrie Nord, who disappeared.
Oh my god,
also disappeared.
Yeah, dude, his art was so good. There was nothing like that.
No, not at all.
It started with a quarter. It was a quarter book.
Yeah,
for Conan #0.
Mm-hmm. All those trades. If anybody has a chance to go to any con and pick up like all the Conan trades that Kirk Busiek did, you will not be disappointed. It was such a great story.
The Born on the Battlefield storyline that was in between every 6 months.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And listen, if you dig that, pick up Northlanders, like by Brian Wood, who's going to do Conan. It's so good. It's just about Vikings. What else do you need?
Nothing. That's it. Let's talk comics.
We haven't been.
No. New comimes.
New comics.
I just looked at the time. That's why. Yeah, exactly. So, good thing it was
we're becoming an NPR show. We're going to just talk about topics from now on.
What was your childhood like?
I looked into my childhood recently. It's not good.
No. That's frightening. I don't know. I picture you in your house with like a crystal ball.
I just found all my old drawings when I was a kid. And it's such a viewfinder into like my dark childhood.
Why did I keep drawing myself as a turkey?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I have to go into this. I can't. I have a platform right now.
Can we get a lower third graphic that says John's childhood?
So I found like those hand turkeys.
Yeah.
I found a hand turkey, and it was made up of like, pieces of construction paper that were painted over. Okay. But it was a big, like, it was like you made a hand turkey and you built over it with like little piece of paper. So each of the fingers or the feathers of the turkey were different parts of my life.
Okay.
So, like that important to me. So it was like friends, family, like pets, school, and like this one was doctors.
the ring finger?
Yeah, like whatever it was doctors. I'm like, oh man, doctors. And I found in the same folder, I found another one, like another piece that was to replace the doctor's one, because I guess my teacher said like that's weird. That said like
aliens.
I don't know, like it was like something that was more basic, like gym class or something like that.
Gym class occupied a lot of my time.
I was like, shoot, like this is dark, dude.
Oh man, you don't strike me as being a dark kid though.
No, I had a messed up childhood.
Okay.
Apparently, I'll bring him in one day.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Whatever, dude. Just makes sense more now.
All right. So Daredevil came out this week.
Sure did.
Daredevil had a dark childhood.
See, I can relate to that.
He got hit by a bus full of chemicals. And it made him blind.
And now he's a cripple.
So Daredevil number 6 came out this week. And
I totally derailed the show.
It's all right. I don't think he did. He did throw up the lower third though, which is awesome. Daredevil number 6 came out this week, which is the final the second arc of Mark Waid storyline, where he's trying to protect another blind kid, and he ends up fighting like a big luchador.
The brawler?
The bruiser.
Who can shift his gravity into his fist.
Which is a freaking awesome
power.
Yeah.
But it's great. He's like a NASCAR car. He's endorsed by all the supervillain crews, like Serpent Society and AIM and Hydra. And what's cool is that it's leading into, I guess, a new spy story with him, where they're trying to recover this like data disk that has all these secrets on it, and it's in shape of the Fantastic Four symbol. It's an unstable molecule because it's unbreakable for the most part.
It's such a great little concept to throw in that like there's millions of bits of information on a Fantastic Four disc that was repurposed.
Well, and what's cool too is you should definitely check out this book, because this is one of those books that is getting a lot of press and a lot of attention. It's one of those things that help the comic book industry by buying. But it's great because after this, they're doing something big with Daredevil, which they won't talk about, that he's crossing over with Spider-Man for some reason. So
I always like the team ups like that, man.
So good. Daredevil and Spider-Man stuff is so cool.
It is, and I didn't touch on it last week too with that big FF thing. Was I love the Johnny Storm Spider-Man stuff.
So good. Well, I don't think you'll see that for a while, but this stuff is like I'm looking forward to Mark Waid working with Dan Slott again.
Yeah.
In terms of crossover, they showed a cover today on Comic Resources of like Daredevil number 10, and dude, it is phenomenal. I'll show you after the thing, but it's like him fighting Mole Man for the most part.
Love it.
So good. It looks like the old 1602 covers. It looks like that type of art with that line drawing thing. So
like the etching.
Yeah,
that's really cool, man. I gotta check it out. FF number 12 also came out this week, which we completely can I say splooged? We completely splooged all over this book last week.
I did, bro.
Fantastic Four number 600.
That's my jizz master.
We went complete full Monty money shot on Hickman and the entire Fantastic Four franchise. And you know what? We get a little add-on, Fantastic FF number 12 this week, which shows the B team of the family of the Fantastic Four: Dragon Man, Franklin Richards, Leech, Aqua People, Mole People, the Son of the Wizard.
Such a good character. Bentley,
awesome. Valeria, who calls Dr. Doom Uncle Doom in this.
So cool.
So this is like the culmination where they teleport. In the last season, they teleported half of the Baxter building somewhere, and they ended up in Latveria, where one of the who Bentley calls him Jerk Reed.
Yeah,
and
the alternate reality Reed. Has a collar around Doom's head, and he's dumb, and a lot of bad things for the whole Doom universe. But they're forced to basically work together.
Yeah,
everybody.
And you have
these are the bad guys in the last issue.
Yeah, and you have Nathaniel Richards also, like, kind of like he's the boss, and he's talking to like the alternate reality Reed, and he's like, listen, you got to do this and that. He's like, stop talking to me like you know me. We don't have a relationship. And he's like, you're kind of my son. No matter what, I will always be a dad. And the art in this book is a real trip too.
It's weird. It's good, but it's very, very weird.
Juan Bobillo.
Yeah. Not his best art. I like him, but I found it very striking. Like it was, I think for such a weird story, it kind of unnerves you. There's a lot going on in this book.
There's a lot,
but I love like Christoph Doom stuff.
Yeah, the Christoph Doom.
I think he's joining the team. I think he's gonna leave with them.
You think so?
Yeah.
I really love I love the relationship between Valeria Richards and Dr. Doom.
Dude, so good.
Because it's just like it's such a weird, it's such a sweet relationship.
Reed Richards' daughter is smarter than Reed Richards.
Yeah,
maybe smarter than Nathaniel. Probably not. But she has a relationship with a father figure relationship in Reed's worst enemy.
Yeah,
who's now on his team. That's what's so cool is like the FF thing, the whole like overarching family that they're doing. It just kind of defies the logic of what you should be doing with like supervillain and stuff like that, and it's awesome.
It does, because it's like it's a little nod, I feel like, to a lot of the Kirby stuff where they know their roles. They know that I'm a bad guy, you're a good guy. This is a weird game that we play. People get hurt sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to do my thing, you're trying to do your thing. And it had that crazy interaction of like, listen, I need you to tell me how you're going to kill me if you could. And they're like, oh, we'd love to do that. We're going to team up and we're going to betray you at the end. This is going to be great. We're going to betray you, but something crazy is going to happen. Like they're in it for the game.
Yeah, man. And like, dude, I love the fact that Dragon Man's on the team.
Yeah.
Like, I love that.
You know what I really loved in the FF 600, which I forgot to mention last week, was the one bit where Susan Richards is like, we have to do this. You guys have to do this for me. And then Namor looks at her and he's like, even if it's out of love. And like the thing is kind of like deadpans him and is like, come on, guy, like really.
Well, he did that in Uncanny also. It's like when like they're about to go off and die and fight Mr. Sinister, and like he turns to like Emma Frost. He's like, have I told you recently your hair? It's like, it's not the time, brother. Stop it.
I want a Namor Pimpin' Ain't Easy miniseries.
I loved it in Namor. There was some good Namor stuff recently. The flashback stuff in Thunderbolts in the last issue, when like he's dying from like getting attacked by evil Human Torches, and Satana is trying to revive him, and she's like, well, he's like, we got to use some arcane magic, and she goes to bang him, and she goes like into the tub. He's like, yes. And the rest of the issue is just him banging out Satana. It's not called Satana.
It's such good stuff. And then again, weird Namor stuff. And when they released the Illuminati book, and I think it was White Queen who was like, you smell like fish. And I never put that together in my head.
Of course he smells like fish. Yeah, I never thought about it.
He's like an underwater European.
He's got. I guarantee you, his undercarriage is the worst. That dude is in water and a Speedo all day long.
That guy's King Tuna. Oh man,
swim with me.
No thanks, Namor. You know what they should do? They should have a story where it's Namor and then he meets an alternate reality gay Namor. So he kind of gets really conscious of what he does, and he's like, "Is this what this is what I do? This is what it's like." I guess we could kiss.
What is better than kissing my own holy self?
Namor. Namor is such a great character.
He's awesome. He's
and also
First Mutant.
First Mutant.
Almost.
Also used to hate Namor when I was a kid, dude.
Oh, I hated him. I didn't get why he was, in my comic books.
Yeah,
it made me feel really uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And I think it was a Peter David story that actually made me like Namor with like the Defenders and stuff.
You when you're a kid, you read like Namor was one of those characters that made me uncomfortable, and for some reason I relate Namor to like Bob Backlund. You don't appreciate him until you're older.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah,
I definitely didn't appreciate Namor.
Like makes you really uncomfortable until like you're maybe like over 25 and
he
you're
just
like,
sucked. I understand why people were hanging out with him, like why he was a good guy. Like there was like everything he did, there was no heroism in it at all. It was always just like him being the selfish dickhead.
Yeah.
He was the one that always screwed up the plans.
Yep. He's driven by anger.
Yeah, dude. But then I would love to do a story about like one of my dream projects. As I always go back to this, I always want to do a Namor when he was the homeless guy and amnesia.
Yeah, that's a really cool like concept.
And then Human Torch finds him and burns his thing up. But I want to do like the lost years of like him in like 1960s like Greenwich Village, like walking around as a homeless guy.
You can throw Doctor Strange in there arguably because he lives in the village.
Oh hell yeah, you can do dude. I got so many ideas.
He's the king of Greenwich Village.
He was great, and he was a homeless guy. He could have been like a weird like Moondog where he like he made jazz music for a year, and, like this cool stuff
out of a conch shell.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, the story writes itself. It really there's so much cool stuff you do with Namor as a homeless man.
I went on my desk on Monday.
Got it.
He's
a publisher now.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm Jeff Johns now, but
big boss,
different company. Spaceman #2 also came out. Spaceman #2 came out this week from the team of Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Riso. If you're not picking up any Vertigo books,
you're an idiot. Great cover. It's awesome.
And if you haven't read any Vertigo books,
you're an idiot.
And you should pick up this book, otherwise
you're an idiot.
So
you'll sound like one of the people in the books.
Yeah. Are you still trying to get used to the language in the book?
I think so. I think I enjoy it more. I'm getting it more. I have a problem whenever I have to read weird English in these books. But that say thing is still kind of bugging me.
Yeah.
But dude, the book is awesome. Like weird ape men brothers that were designed to pilot to Mars and take care of Mars. In a failed space program. I don't even know if they even made it to Mars. I think that's a lot of stuff is in his head.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, the premise of the book is that after the space program got debunked, this is years after that where NASA was kind of left on its own, and they created Mongoloids to go into space. And they all talk like with like emoticons almost.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, they're, this is basically the worst case scenario. What happens to America after the next generation raises children on texting?
Yeah, and there's pirates in it too.
Dude, there's pirates. There's reality shows.
Drug addiction.
But it's inherently still like a noir.
Yeah,
it still has like the basic framing sequences of like a mystery, a kidnapping, drug addiction, and a weird anti-hero.
Yeah, a very weird and you also have like instead of like the dame, it's a little orphan girl.
Yeah,
who
possibly may screw him.
Right, who will probably screw him over or bone him.
I think I was going with the boning
because they don't really tell you how old he's supposed to be.
Yeah, well, I don't think, but they're very much leading you by the nose, and they're telling you exactly what you know at the moment. So you're getting bits and pieces of what makes this world into this world. But like, I love this type of sci-fi, and it's definitely a sci-fi book. But you can feel this is an Azzarello story now. Like you're seeing shades of 100 Bullets and something like this.
It's a really good layout too, and it's only 9 issues long, which is like I hope it would be cool if it got like picked up or who knows where the story's gonna go. But it has the same feel of when you read those first couple of issues of 100 Bullets and you didn't really quite know where it was gonna go, but the payoff was tremendous.
Yeah,
like that first 100 Bullets miniseries, which also if you have not read.
You're stupid.
And you should pick it up.
You're dumb. You're a dumb person. You failed.
Thunderboys. No, Thunderbolts.
Yes.
Thunderboys.
Yes.
Thunderbolts.
Hello.
Thunderbolts
Thunderboys number
166.
66.
So, following up with the Thunderbolts is one of those books in the Marvel catalog right now that I feel like is very under the current.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah. It's a fantastic book, and this storyline is you have an even more eviler team of Thunderbolts.
The B team of Thunderbolts.
Traveling back in time, and they meet the invaders in the last story arc, and then they're supposed to go to the future, but end up traveling way back in time to England.
Post Jack the Ripper, like Whitechapel.
Right, in England, and of course Mr. Hyde's on the team, and this is like, I feel like Parker, when he was writing this book, was like, I'm going to write this awesome Mr. Hyde story.
Yeah, I think this is why he put Mr. Hyde on the team.
Yeah.
Like, because Mr. Hyde, they kind of go into like Mr. Hyde's background, right? This is not the Mr. Hyde, this is Marvel's Mr. Hyde, which is a guy named Calvin Zabo, who who took like a serum and became a big psychopath. But what's great is they say that he's like a Jack the Ripper aficionado, so he's like, of course, I'm in Victorian England, I have to, reenact Jack the Ripper. And what's cool is they send Santana after him to go rescue him or like get him out of this, and she's involved with it because she loves like people getting murdered. This is awesome.
She loves murder.
Really cool nod too is they actually have Inspector Abilene as the people who meet Thunderbolts.
Right.
Who is actually the inspector from Hell and from like the Jack the Ripper,
Who's actually an inspector in real life.
Yeah.
It's Scotland Yard.
Yeah, and it's great too because you get like you're constantly getting this Lost in Time storyline, which is gonna go deeper and deeper. I think the next story is like the Dark Ages. Right. So they basically shuttled the main cast out and really took some really weird characters and played with them and created a new team dynamic from scratch, and it's amazing, and the art's great, and the costumes are great, and
it's a really cool book. And at this point, I feel like it crossed the line into like that really cool Exiles kind of style, because Exiles was fantastic
when it was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was like
a lot of shit too.
Yeah, it was like it was mind blowing, and then it kind of got really crappy. But this is like mind blowing Exile style, where these guys are like trapped in time, and then you have the other A-Team Thunderbolts trying to track them down through a rune,
Troll's axe,
right?
Yeah,
through a rune in the north where they can think about where the axe is, and then they're gonna get there at some point.
I like the bit when they said. They're talking about like we can't mess with time. We can't mess with time while we're here. And they go to Centaurus, who's one of the scientist people on the team, and he's like, we probably destroy time as we know it when we start doing this traveling stuff.
He's such a downer. I guess the Debbie Downer of
showed up like two issues of like Nick Fury, and that was it. Weird character to pull from. Good job, Boomerang though. Always respect for Spider-Man villains.
Yeah, I like the bit in the book where Boomerang is just like,
oi, right.
And Bob's your uncle.
It's like you're never gonna fit in. They do a great job with his costumes.
Yeah,
I think I loved his costume in the World War II storyline.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had like the helmet and the boomerangs. Boomerang guys don't get a lot of respect, I feel.
Yeah. Well, I think you reached the pinnacle with Captain Boomerang. Yeah. Like all of his development and everything. I think it's even hard for Parker to not write him as Captain Boomerang.
It is pretty hard. But that Captain Boomerang doesn't exist anymore, man.
He kind of does. Remember he showed up in Suicide Squad?
But it's not the same Captain Boomerang, right? I mean, it is, but it's.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't have the Silver Age, and he hasn't lived that long.
And he's not a vicious murderer of Tim Drake's dad.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe right. I don't know.
Maybe it happened.
Probably not. Probably not.
What are we gonna end on? Are we Andrew? How much we got? 5. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uncanny X-Men #2.
Very cool.
From 1963. No. Uncanny X-Men #2 from Wednesday. Really cool stuff. It's going into the whole Regenesis story again. #1 is still available. Pick up #2. It's a really cool. If you loved Mr. Sinister or just like even the look of him, Kieran Gillen really takes him to the next level within. I feel like this issue.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like he Mr. Sinister's always been a weird, mysterious character, and they've touched on his origin, but this is showing you what his ultimate goal is to create a brand new race of people who are essentially Sinisters.
Yeah, and it's such a cool little thing. In a nutshell, he really
it's a
nailed.
Doctor Who storyline, right? For the most part,
I don't know. Probably. I'll say yes.
Yes.
I'll say yes. Gillen nailed it in a nutshell in this issue where he's like, listen, there was a guy named Nathaniel Estes, but he died. And then he created another Nathaniel Estes who was better. And then he died, and then the next guy was better. And I'm the culmination of perfection, and I'm going to die right now. And then he shows up in a different body, and he's like, listen, man, we're all sinister.
Yeah.
Which is like a really cool bit to the thing. And the Celestials are on the way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what's cool about it is that they're incorporating all those like weird elements into X-Men.
Yeah.
And you have the like weirdest team of X-Men in a long time. That's all heavy hitters and they're all like possibly bad guys.
Yeah, except for Hope.
Yeah, Hope could be a bad guy.
I feel like she's too afraid to be the bad guy.
She's a bad guy. I think they're gonna reveal that she's the bad guy.
And again, Mr. Namor is on the team.
Namor does some good stuff in this thing.
Yeah.
Emma Frost doesn't have an arm because in the diamond form they broke it off.
Right.
You've got Juggernaut Colossus. Juggolossus. Who else? Cyclops is a weirdo. Danger's a weirdo. Storm. Yeah, she's got clean hands for the most part.
I feel like Gillen also nailed a big problem I have with a lot of X-Men miniseries and kind of like restarts is that a lot of writers can't really nail voices of characters, and I think Gillen does a phenomenal job with it. He's on 2 bang up books too. You have Journey into Mystery and Uncanny.
He was doing Generation Hope before this, and that was like a fantastic team book also that he did very, very distinct voice. That's a very, very good point.
Yeah. And and it's a lot of really good wordy stuff, but it's meaty. It's not like it's not writing just to write fluff. No, like everything any character says is very worth it. And you have like a nice payoff. And again, it's a really nice reintroduction to the Mr. Sinister character.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
Sinister,
Mr. Sister. I
would love to see Mr. Sinister cosplay.
Yeah, or even like when they did Miss Sinister, when they had the chick version of it.
Yes,
that is what I like to see. That's where I want to see cosplayers. Give me Sinisters.
Yeah,
or even this. This is actually a good comic for the possibility of doing a lot of cosplay because you have like an entire city built by composed of a bunch of Sinisters.
Yeah, so you can essentially have a team of different looking Mr. Sinisters,
and they look like Victorian Parliament. Members.
Yeah, they do. One's dashing, one has short hair, one has long hair. You have a James Bond Mr. Sinister. You can have like a Sherlock Holmes Mr. Sinister.
Oh, so cool.
We want the fans to submit their homemade Mr. Sinister pictures for next week's show.
Yes.
Anybody out there in the chat room?
I want them right now.
Paint your face white and put a diamond on your forehead. Email us.
Those are words to live by, brother.
Paint your face white, put a diamond on your forehead, bro.
There's a message in there somewhere.
I think so. All right, I think we're good.
Are we good? I'm never good.
Yeah. What are you looking at, by the way? What's occupying?
He's looking at he's looking at the cameras on our power parts.
No, I'm reading about Martha Stewart going to jail.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Is she still in jail? No.
Where'd she went?
T.I. got out of jail. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The King of the South.
The King of the South. All right, everybody. This has been another episode of Behind the Counter. I'm Rich Dambolian.
And I'm Dead Inside.